Welcome everyone to this BHP Xplor 2024 information session. Good evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Richard Roberts, the Editorial Director at Beacon Events. It's great to be with you. I'd like to welcome BHP Xplor's Charlie Johnson and Niall McCormack on the call, and also Alex Walker, the CEO of eStar Resources. We're here to talk about the third iteration of the BHP Xplor Accelerator program, the world's first accelerator program for minerals exploration. The program kicked off back in 2022 and has really been an outstanding success so far, with something like 750 applications received, including more than 500 last year alone. About a dozen companies in two cohorts have been chosen by BHP Xplor's team to advance innovative and diverse exploration concepts. Successful applicants can access $500,000 of equity-free funding, and they get access to BHP's vast bank of expertise and mentors and its global exploration support ecosystem. Applications have been open for the latest 6-month program since the 3rd of this month, I think, and they close on October the 9th. We're clearly going through a time in the industry when a lot of early stage exploration is facing various funding and other challenges, particularly in parts of the critical minerals space, which really does underline the value of this initiative and points to why it's been going from strength to strength. So we're going to have a quick presentation from Charlie Johnson, who joins us today from Houston, Texas. Then I've got some questions for Charlie, Niall and Alex. And then we'll move on to audience questions. So please post them in the panel provided. Charlie recently finished a 2-year stint as head of BHP Xplor. She was a key member of the team that built the program, which she says was conceived to change the industry. Charlie's now head of commercial exploration at BHP. Niall worked with BHP on the creation of BHP Xplor. He's a former VP of global petroleum exploration at BHP, and he's regarded as a leading figure in mining and energy exploration and growth. He's certainly respected for his strategic insight and transformative leadership. Niall says he's had the pleasure of working with a number of cohort CEOs and their leadership teams and boards to advise on strategy, risk management and operating models. And one of those cohort CEOs is Alex Walker. Alex is a mining investment banker and resources executive who's been in the industry for more than 15 years. He co-founded ASX-listed Scandi Vanadium. He's got all sorts of degrees and is a former captain in the Australian Army Reserves. These days he's based in Almaty in Kazakhstan, but he joins us today from London. Charlie, Niall and Alex, welcome again. And I'll let Charlie pick things up from here. Can I please just remind speakers to mute your laptops when you're not speaking, and I'll mute mine now.
Thank you, Richard. I'm just going to share my screen for the presentation and we'll get started. Richard, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Good? Okay. All right. Thank you for the very warm introduction, Richard. It is truly a pleasure to be here, and we appreciate all that have dialed into this webinar. As Richard said, my name is Charlie Johnson, and I'm the head of commercial in BHP's exploration organization. It's really a privilege to be here in this new capacity that is my role as head of commercial. As Richard mentioned, I've had the unique privilege to be part of Xplor over the past 2.5 years. Xplor, it seems like it started yesterday, but it has been a 2.5-year journey to get us where we are today. When I first began with the group, Xplor was just an idea on paper, and over the last 2.5 years, we've transformed it into what it is today. We've successfully launched 2 application campaigns, receiving over 750 applications in that 2-year period. and we've successfully run 2 programs hosting 13 participating companies over that time. So today we're going to give you a glimpse into the journey that is Xplor, and fully expecting that there's probably a wide range of awareness across the audience. Some of you may have heard about Xplor, but don't know much about it. Others might know companies that have participated, like eStar Resources, and very happy to have Alex here today to speak on his experience with Xplor. And some of you might just want to know what it looks like, how it works, and what the value proposition is for people to apply. So we'll touch on all of those things through this brief presentation, and then we'll open up for Q&A at the end. So please make sure to get your questions into the chat, and we'll get through as many as we can during our time in the webinar. So before we start with the story of Xplor, we have to start with where we come from. And I'd imagine that everybody on this call is aware of who BHP is. We are the largest integrated oil company in the world, mining company in the world. We find, develop, and produce the resources our world needs to grow and decarbonize. Our portfolio is made up of copper for renewable energy, nickel for electric vehicles, potash for sustainable farming, and iron ore and metallurgical coal for new infrastructure and steelmaking. Over the past several years, BHP has had a mandate for growth, and it is through innovative business models like BHP Xplor that BHP is demonstrating its commitment and increased investment to accelerate exploration and accelerate the discoveries of the critical minerals that our world needs to meet our energy transition goals. And that is really where the story of Xplor begins. So 2.5 years ago, our teams took a pause to look outside of our industry for motivation on how to accelerate new ideas, early stage companies. And we took a look at the venture capital industry specifically, and that's why you see Silicon Valley featured on this slide. So we looked at venture capital and specifically at the accelerator business model. The accelerator business model is commonly used in the venture capital space and has been for over a decade. You have the likes of Techstars, Y Combinator, and Creative Destructive Labs that have made the model what it is today and have proven that it is an effective way to identify and accelerate early stage ideas and early stage companies. So we lifted that business model and we re-engineered it and really customized it to be applicable to the common challenges of minerals exploration. So we all know that the funding and capital challenge is very real and part of everyday life for minerals explorers. And BHP is using this model to address that. Over the last 2 years, we've proven it works. So we've proven that there's a demand in the market. We've seen that with the response coming through the applications. We've proven that it has the opportunity to have a real impact on exploration companies that participate in Xplor. It has an impact on the projects. It has an impact on the companies. And we believe that at the end of Xplor, the companies that leave our program have a higher likelihood of investment coming out. Now, as Richard mentioned, we're in open application period again for year 3. So applications opened at the beginning of the month and are closing on October 9th. So I'm going to address some of the most common questions we get during application period. The first of which is, what are you looking for? So in applicants and companies that we select, we are looking for a broad spectrum of candidate profile. And this is actually one of my favorite slides because it holds true to an early thesis that we had in the beginning of the design of Xplor, and that is we really wanted to keep the application open to anyone and everyone that has new ideas in exploration. That includes individuals in research and academic communities, it includes private companies, and it includes publicly listed companies like eStar Resources. This was an early thesis that we could span this wide range of candidate profile, and it's again held true over the last 2 years. We've seen a pretty even split of individuals and companies applying into Xplor. And if you look at the companies that we've selected into the program over the last couple years, you'll see that we've spanned this company profile. We have a pretty even split between private and publicly listed companies that we've invited into the program. And in our first year, we had our first individual that applied. So in year one, we had Jim Mungle, who applied into the Xplor program as Jim Mungle Professor at Carleton University. By the time he started and completed the Xplor program, he became Jim Mungle of Bronzite Exploration. So he started his first minerals exploration company, built a business, hired a team, and scaled his company into Bronzite Exploration. That is a credible minerals exploration company today. So the headline here is we're open to anyone and everyone. Like I said, we want to hear from you if you have new ideas in exploration, where to find the deposits of the future. And we've designed our program to be conducive across this spectrum of candidate profile to welcome you in and provide value no matter where you sit. The next question is, what's in it for me? So if you choose to participate in Xplor, what is the value proposition for participating companies? There's a few different components of the value proposition of Xplor for those that choose to participate. The first of which is the grant funding. So the headline that attracts everybody in is the US $500,000 grant payment that is issued over the course of the 6-month program. Everyone that's participated in Xplor quickly realizes that the value of Xplor goes much further beyond just that funding. First and foremost, anyone that knows exploration knows that $500,000 won't take you too far in a drilling program. And we design and deliver the program in a way that the value extends much further beyond just the funding. We have a program curriculum that is deliberately and intentionally designed to have meaningful impact on exploration companies and projects. We connect all of our participating companies into BHP's network of subject matter experts, and additionally, our networks of external service providers. Mike Jones said it best. He's part of the Xplor alumni group now. And he said it best when he characterized the program as a mini MBA for minerals exploration. So that's a good way to think about it. The last component of the value proposition is the global community that's now been created over the last 2 years. So the cohort, as we call the groups of participating companies, started as a global community of 6. And we've grown that community into a group of 13, having just completed the second round of Xplor in June of this year. The community that's developed is hard to describe. We call it the BHP Xplor magic, and we've really seen that get sparked both years. All of our participating companies that have come in are facing the same challenges. And we've seen that the Xplor program facilitates this unique opportunity for like-minded companies with common challenges to come together, share ideas, look for synergies between work programs and teams, and come together to solve the challenge that we all have, which is to accelerate discovery. The final and most common question is, what does it look like? And how does the Xplor program work? And probably most importantly, what is the expectation if I choose to participate? So the Xplor program is 6 months in duration. It kicks off in January and concludes in June. There are 3 keystone or cornerstone in-person events. We have our bootcamp event in January, our toolkit event in March, and the showcase event in June. And those are all opportunities for the Xplor cohort and the Xplor team to come together and set the foundations of the program, which is what happens at bootcamp. In March, the toolkit camp runs on the back end of the PDAC conference in Toronto, where we have a critical mass in industry in the city of Toronto, and we use that opportunity to connect our cohort companies to the networks of external service providers. And the showcase event in June is the opportunity for us to come together to wrap up the program and to have an externally facing event to showcase the accomplishments of both the Xplor program and the participating companies. In between the in-person events, we have a series of virtual masterclasses and coaching sessions. What you can expect in those is a broad range of topics, technical topics, operational. We bring in subject matter experts on stakeholder engagement, community relations. And really what we're doing over the course of this 6-month period is bringing in topics and BHP best practices across the 3 pillars of the program, which are technical readiness underpinned by our mineral systems frameworks, operational readiness, and business strategy. For each participating company, we ask that 2 representatives participate in the program throughout the duration of the 6-month period. So we ask that the CEO or managing director of each company participate and a senior technical expert. We do ask that those 2 representatives participate throughout as much as possible. And through the virtual masterclasses, there are opportunities to invite broader teams where it makes sense. So that is a little bit about the mechanics of the program. And really, the ultimate objective of the design of Xplor is to break down the walls that exist between major mining companies like BHP and the junior exploration market. And we've found that the deliberate design of in-person events and virtual masterclasses and the way that we run the curriculum really facilitates this. And what we get at the end is a true meeting of the minds where BHP's bringing the best of the best in the form of our subject matter experts. We're putting what we think are industry best practices and tools and frameworks on the table. And our participating companies join us, and they take up what makes sense for their companies. They have the opportunity to meet with experts that can help them with their projects and work programs. And we've found that it's a very unique opportunity to build a common understanding. BHP gets a deeper understanding into the projects and the teams behind them. The participants build the understanding of what's important for BHP, what we look for in technical projects, what we look for in partners that we want to operate on our behalf. And it sets a very strong foundation for us to enter into conversations about longer term partnerships. And at the end of the day, that's why BHP is in this. The last question that we always get every year is, why is BHP doing this and why now? And the answer starts with the comment that I made earlier, which is BHP has a growth mandate, and we have for the last several years, and we have a full recognition that to meet our growth objectives, we have to bring in new opportunities into our portfolio, and we have to be working with leading teams in exploration globally. So BHP Xplor is a vehicle that allows us to do that. During the application period that we're in now, we literally open the door to BHP globally, and we invite individuals, private companies, publicly listed companies to apply in. We get a look globally at new innovative ideas happening in exploration. We get to meet the best and brightest teams behind them. And through the program, we get to build that deeper understanding of the projects, the teams, and the people that are driving the work programs forward. And we believe that that sets up for more effective and sustainable long-term partnerships. And that's really why we're in this. So what I'll leave you with is this quote from Juho at Nordic Nickel, and he also was, he's in the alumni group and participated in Xplor in its first year. And what he said here is that it's difficult to put the value of Xplor into words. And as I was reflecting on my talking points for Xplor in its 3rd year, I can relate to this. We've been 2 years running. We've proven the impact and potential of Xplor, but it's still difficult to articulate the Xplor magic. And so what I'd like to leave you with is an invitation to come see it firsthand. Applications are open until October 9th. We invite you to apply, start engaging with the Xplor team. And if you're interested, come see what Xplor is like and come experience some of that Xplor magic for yourself and your teams and your companies. So Richard, I will leave it at that, and I think we'll transition over into Q&A panel.
You're on mute, Richard.
Richard, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks very much for that, Charlie. Fantastic information about what is a unique program. We've got questions flowing in from the audience already, but I might just get you guys to unmute and bring the panel in. I might just kick off with a few. I might even start with you, Alex, if you don't mind. I believe you were part of last year's cohort. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, the 2024 cohort. So we kicked off in January of this year, and we finalised in June of this year.
Right. What can you just maybe talk about your rationale for applying to the Xplor program? What was the and what was the selection process like? Could you maybe give people an idea of what it was like?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. For me, the primary driver, honestly, more than the money, was the education. You know, I've jokingly said in an interview before, and I think I must have said it to Charlie when I was going through the process, but if we don't quite finish the due diligence, can you let me into the program anyway? You don't need to give me the money, but just put me on the program. And having completed the program, honestly, I still feel the same way. So that was my main motivator, and I came out very happy at the end of that. The application process is 3 steps. It's your initial application, which obviously people are submitting at the moment, the paper application where you provide detail on your project and on your team. The second part is a phone interview, and then the third part is an in-person interview. And obviously, slowly the BHP team whittle you down along the way. The in-person one for us was in Toronto, so we were flown in for several hours of meetings. They bring the brains trust, so it's a big group of people with a diverse range of expertise that's happy to. I was going to say grill you. I guess it could feel like a grilling, but really they're just looking for insight. They're looking to not only find out about your project. It's not 100% technical. Really, they want to find out a lot about you, your motivations, how you operate as a team, how you operate as a leader, for example, how amenable you are to new ideas, new concepts that their team will produce along the way. And so, I would say that your personality, your ability to participate in a process that's highly educational and can change the way you think, not just about exploration, but about leadership and about processes. You need to show that you're amenable to that, and that's a really big part of what they're looking for.
Sure. And Noel, maybe you, the program has been going for a couple of years. You've seen applications for different types of projects in different parts of the world. Could you maybe just give us more of an insight about what a good opportunity or a good concept looks like these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and maybe this might answer some of the questions as well. So the first thing we're normally looking for is and Alex iterated it there and stated it there, is we're looking for good teams. We're looking for people that are deeply curious, driven to explore and driven to do great things. We're looking globally, so we want an opportunity set from all over the world, and we've had opportunities in Africa, on the program we've had Australian, Asian, African, European, North American. We haven't quite had a South American on the program yet. No, we'd love to have something from South America on the program if at all possible. So it's very much global, and it's around the team and the opportunity. So we're very open to the stage the opportunity is. We're focused on copper, but actually we're open to looking at all, and that's what we want is people to challenge us to open our eyes within that space and get us to consider the alternatives. That allows us to challenge internally as well. And as we look at some of the cohort members and some cohort companies, you can see that. You can see that actually there's Alex mentioned about looking for teams that are open. Actually, we also internally want to be pushed hard to be open and for Xplor to open our eyes. We learn an enormous amount from the cohort companies. So people who are curious, energetic, driven, want to be part of it, with opportunities that are challenging us to think differently, to look at things differently at any stage within that exploration remit. And we look at every single one of them. As Charlie said, we had last year we had over 500, and we read and go through and consider every single opportunity that comes in through a process, even before Alex's discussions around who do we talk to next. We spend a lot of time working our way through that.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge number. What can maybe just give us some insight as to the process for whittling that down? What makes a standout applicant stand out from a group that large?
I think the what we're looking for people to do is to, and people who look at the form and go in and look at the application form, you'll see it on the website. You can go in and log on and register. We ask questions like, what motivates you? What's driving you? And they're actually really important, because we're gonna spend 6 intense months with these teams. We ask questions around what drives your interest in these opportunities, or this opportunity that you're bringing to the table. Again, that's really important, because we do want you to believe in your opportunities. We want you to be that really hard thing in exploration of believing in your opportunity and being realistic about your opportunity. That sort of dichotomy that you get, that's important to us. So we want to understand what you think the risks are within that, and be open to having a frank conversation about it. We're explorers. We work at the front end. We work in the places where, you know, most things we work on in our careers don't become mines. They don't become the mine of the future. We're really aware of that, and we have to get that balance between our excitement and our realism, and we all have to do that. Having been an explorer for nearly 30 years now, I completely understand that challenge of how do you do the two of these at the same time. But yeah, you know, challenging us, being clear about why you want to be part of it, being clear about your opportunity, but being frank and open on both sides of that equation. We recognize that we're going to be bringing risk, but we think you should be bullish as well. And I would say that everyone who comes through is different. So there's no secret sauce to it. It's not formulaic. We've had different nationalities, different opportunity sets, different metal types, different deposit types, even one that was more leading on the how we explore rather than where we explore. So we're very open to being challenged across those.
I'm just watching some of the questions come through, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get one along these lines. But Charlie, a question you must hear a lot is, you know, what can the successful cohort spend the funding on? And I'm listening to an earlier broadcast, an information session. I understand you do draw the line on at yachts and doing anything that might be seen as illegal. But what can they spend the funding on? What can't they?
Yes, their yachts are definitely not allowed. We do draw a line there. No, the use of funds and the terms that we have around that in our participation agreement, which is the contract, allow use of funds to be spent on the project that's brought into Xplor, and it's not very prescriptive beyond that. We have seen companies use the funds to acquire tenements. We've seen companies like Bronzite that I mentioned earlier use funds to start a company and establish the business foundations needed to hire first employee and contract service providers to help them scale their business. Others acquire data acquisitions, run geophysics programs, and we've had a couple that have used funding for drilling programs. So there's really a wide range. What we will do at the beginning of the program with each participant in January at boot camp is agree a work program that will be completed during the 6-month period. And what we'll expect is that the companies use the funds in alignment to what the work program that was agreed. And we have regular coaching calls, technical coaching calls specifically, where Each participant is expected to report on the use of funds, but the restrictions are not prescriptive, as I said, and as long as they're being spent on the project that has been brought into Xplor, that is the expectation.
What about countries or jurisdictions? I know you mentioned South America earlier. I know it's not off limits anyway, but are there countries or jurisdictions that are off limits? I think the standard answer would be that geology doesn't respect country boundaries, but are there restrictions?
That is correct, and that's one of the drivers behind the application being open globally, because we do want to see all jurisdictions come in. The only restriction that we have is sanctioned countries, but beyond that, we are looking in all jurisdictions, and specifically jurisdictions that BHP doesn't have a presence in today. What we found through Xplor is that it allows us to learn about new countries and new jurisdictions and what it's like to operate and explore there. And it really gives us a unique opportunity to build that understanding and help inform our decision making on if it's a jurisdiction that, if BHP is not already there, if it's one that we want to pursue for entry.
Richard, can I just, with that one, can I follow up and poke on Charlie there around the the learn stuff? But one of the questions I saw is how does BHP give confidence it won't steal or stake the opportunity itself? I think it's a really good follow on to that particular statement, because we are learning as BHP, but what's in there? What stops us from doing what we shouldn't do?
Yes. That is a good question, and we do have terms and conditions on both the application and, of course, the 6-month program period as well, through the form of our participation agreement. There is confidentiality on both sides, so the projects and the information that you share attributable to your project will be kept confidential. And there are protections in place that will not allow BHP to go in and enter after you share your project ideas and locations. Equally, we expect confidentiality on the information that's shared from BHP's perspective when you enter the program. But the contract itself and the terms and conditions provide that protection for participating companies, so that BHP is not going to be directly competing with you during the program period and for a period of time thereafter.
I'm seeing quite a few questions come through. Alex, any advice for people or companies who are thinking about applying as a successful applicant?
I guess advice for the application process and advice for the program. Be expansive. I think with the application process, look at what you're targeting and why, from really step back and figure out why. BHP don't want small projects, right? They're a big company. They want game-changing projects, game-changing ideas. So look at where you are and what the potential could be, and don't be shy about the size of it. If it could be really big, then make that statement. But be prepared to back it up. Technically speaking, be prepared to back it up. A lot of that information you might not actually have. You work through that in the program. The program's really in depth. BHP have a mineral systems approach, and you go right back to source generation. I didn't, as a non-geologist, I didn't think I'd realize this or learn this much about plate tectonics and so on. But that's that's a part of the work that we did in the program. So that would be my advice on the application, and obviously keep an open mind going into the program. It's the same advice. Be prepared to work and be prepared to keep an open mind. You're going to be sitting with some absolutely outstanding people on BHP's side, but your cohort as well. I mean, these are just some fantastic minds. You've obviously got a lot in common because you're all doing the same thing in terms of exploration. So everyone likes to nerd out on rocks and things like that. But, there's the capital market side of things. There's funding, there's different jurisdictions, above ground risk issues. You get an opportunity to talk through all these things with your cohort, and then with experts who help manage the process for BHP or independent consultants that they bring in as part of the course, as part of the master classes and toolkit and so on. So keep an open mind. there is an insane amount of information. You can't, all the things that you want to start changing about your company, when you hear it, you can't possibly implement them all straight away. So be prepared for a long process of improvement. We're still going through it. But the work part comes into it as well. I think, I'm not quite sure if we had more than others, but Kazakhstan was a new country entry for BHP. So there was to say the due diligence was thorough is probably an understatement. So that was really big for us, and that was a big part of, you know, of my personal work program over the 6 months. Charlie did say that specifically looking for areas that they're not in, but there were 2 members in our cohort who are West Australian explorers. So it's really the team and the ideas, I think, from what I saw, that drives it. So yeah, be prepared to work and be prepared to keep an open mind. And if you've got those 2 things in play, honestly, if you didn't have that naturally, you probably wouldn't make it into the program, quite frankly.
Thanks, Alex. You mentioned mineral systems. Maybe, Charlie, just a final question. BHP says it is searching globally for explorers who are ready to think about the Earth's mineral systems differently. How do you ground the technical part of the program in mineral systems?
Yes, so I'll give the intro to that, and then I'm going to defer to my resident geologist, Niall, on this one. The mineral systems frameworks is our foundation for the technical component of the Xplor program, and it's the foundation of our technical work in exploration as well. And so we bring this into the program starting really with the application. You'll see some of the questions are designed to start to understand the ideas from the mineral systems lens. And it is a core tenet of the program, as I mentioned. We spend 2 days at the boot camp event walking through how BHP thinks about the mineral systems, and each company has the opportunity to break their projects apart in the various components and start to design their work programs around what it will take to de-risk the different components of the mineral systems. What we found, again, like Alex, I'm a non-geologist, but what I see and observe from doing this is that the participating companies, again, understand a language of how BHP thinks and communicates around projects. It starts us speaking that common language, and it allows the participating companies to present their projects in a way that BHP thinks when we put forward our investment decisions and make, you know, decisions to bring opportunities into the portfolio. So it sets us on the same foundation, talking the same language, and it's a very good form of communication for the Xplor program. It also improves the partnerships that we choose to enter after Xplor, because the work programs, the understanding of the technical characterization of the opportunities continue with those same fundamentals, and the partnerships that we've continued beyond Xplor, that's really set us up for success to keep projects moving forward in a way that has an aligned understanding.
Yeah,
No, anything to add there? We've got.
I think the way I think about it is so I think about it through a strategy lens, which says that mineral systems is what we do on the program is BHP's proprietary look at mineral systems. So it's not a published let's say approach within the industry. It's very much how we do it. Why we do it that way is because the way we break it down allows us to make sure that the capabilities, i.e. the work programs that we're designing at any stage and scale, are designed to be the most effective work program to differentiate our understanding of an opportunity, whether it should move forward or stop. So what mineral systems does is, as well as that common language, what it does is it actually allows us to work out what's the most efficient way of spending our time and resources. So from that respect, it becomes a very strategic tool, and it's actually a business tool from my perspective, as well as a language that we use. I think though probably one of the biggest compliments of it is that if anyone ever hears Alex talk, they'll think he's a geologist. And what it does is what I've found talking to the CEOs of the companies, some of whom aren't geos by background, the technical experts are nearly all geos by background, or they have all been geos. But we get a fair share of people on the program who are not geoscientists by background. And what it specifically allows them is access. So they now have a language by which they can have a level of understanding and detailed conversations with their teams about why their investments are being made where they're being made. Without that approach, it's relatively inaccessible for the person who hasn't spent 20 years exploring. So I'd probably finish off, if that's okay, just handing it to Alex and saying, you know, people, I think people may be skeptical coming in, but Alex, you're somebody who's come out the other end. What did you think of how we use mineral systems?
Yeah, I mean, look, Niall, you were there. There's a lot of it that went over my head, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot. There's actually an example that I use. I like to give because it's a really prescient example of the Andes. BHP and a lot of other companies obviously have been producing copper in that mineral belt for quite some time, and I think I recall the specific age date, but I won't say it just in case it is proprietary. But I remember someone in BHP saying, we know in the end is that we want this specific age and we don't want this age. And littered across the belt, there's two different ages. And quite clearly, you know, if I'm going to lean into your comments when you talk about crustal thickening at the time of emplacement, or the period of subduction that helps create these giant porphyry systems, which is the work that we've been doing in Kazakhstan, you know that the specific set of events occurred at a specific time across a belt range, and there were other events which occurred at the same time. But you can save quite a lot of money, obviously, by drilling the ones, because you've got enough data points on that. So that for me was driven home by the mineral systems approach, or that was a really live example of the mineral systems approach, because you otherwise wouldn't know. Maybe your surface expression looks almost exactly the same on all of these, but there is a real reason why this age created, you know, big high-grade porphyries and this age didn't. And so, you know, like I said, for me, it was very educational. And despite the fact that we were in the program for porphyries, we have a three-pronged strategy, so we can use it for sedimentary hosted copper and VMS exploration as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. We've got a bit of a backlog of questions. I might get into them, otherwise we're going to run out of time. I love this one. I've got to start here. Is the BHP Xplor program limited to terrestrial mining, or could deep sea mining be a candidate?
I can take that one, Richard. So again, the applications are open to all ideas in exploration. And so we definitely don't put filters out there. But what I will say is that when we're making our selection decisions and when we're going down from the hundreds of applications down to the final list, we are keeping BHP's portfolio and growth objectives front of mind. So Niall mentioned earlier that our priority is copper, and that remains the same going into year 3. But we really want to see all leading ideas in exploration, regardless of commodity and deposit type. So we encourage anyone and all to apply with these new ideas.
Can a company that's previously applied apply again, and under what sort of conditions, or if any conditions?
No conditions. The answer is yes. If you've applied before, you are welcome to apply again. It would be helpful if you make that note in the application. In year 2, we did have several applicants that we saw in year 1, and we make sure that we keep note of that. And so if you can make a note in your application, it would help us. But we do try to keep tabs on who's coming through again. The other question that I saw that's somewhat related is, can you submit multiple applications while we're on this theme? And the answer to that is yes. And we actually prefer that if you have different projects in different locations or different deposit types, or just different ideas, we do ask that you separate those into multiple applications so that we can treat them as independent decisions.
Interesting. Larger companies, larger company representatives. What are there any limits on in terms of company size or the extent of the work already done? What
No,
are the conditions there?
maybe the best thing to do. I mean, no, there's no stated restriction on company size or what stage an opportunity is at. We're focused mainly final discovery, if you want, or feasibility study. So anything upstream of that, great. But there's no we juniors to be as Charlie said, we've had everything from the academic who he had a company number when he showed up for the interview. At which he'd registered the week before, and through to companies that are material public entities with relatively high market caps. So there's no stated boundaries in that respect.
Question about the January to June period, the normal programming phase. What kind of support is available for teams?
Maybe I'll take that one, Charlie, because so there's 3 big events that are in person, and the expectation. So the expectation is that 2 people will be nominated to be part of the program through the whole 6 months, and that they will attend all the in-person events and the most of the coaching and masterclasses. We'll come back to that in a minute, what I mean by those. The in-person events, there are 3 of them. There's boot camp, which happens in January. There's toolkit camp, which happens in March. And there's showcase, the end programming and showcase that happens in June. They are intense, in-person, where we go through critical elements of business strategy and business tools, through to mineral systems, through to operational. And that progresses across those 3 main in-person events, from a starting point to what we hope for everybody is, everyone's starting in a different place, but our goal is that by the time that you come out, you're in a different place. We've had people on this who have 35 years experience, have been vice presidents of major companies, who have an enormous amount of experience. Our goal is that they'll think that they've come out better at the end of it than they came in at the start. And we've had people who have never run a company in their life. Again, our goal is that they will come out in a different place. So that's our objective there. As we go through the program outside those in person, we have 2 main elements. That we have the coaching element, which is specifically for the CEO, MD, and the technical lead. And we have a technical session and a business session. And we have leadership coaching within that, which so we've got really 3 elements of coaching that go on, and they happen for about an hour every 2 weeks or a month, depending on which style of coaching that is. And then we have masterclasses, and the masterclasses are very much we look at those as we're going through the next 6 months, and as we see what applications are coming in, and we go out and we collect the right experts from around the world. So we use people who are inside BHP, outside BHP, that we think add significant value to people's understanding of the technical elements of the business, potentially the operational or the business elements. And we bring in those people from wherever they may be, and that's done virtually. And for a lot of that, your whole team can join. It's not just about the 2 people. We open that up to try and make that as useful for everyone. So we've had 2 big sessions on copper porphyries within our master classes. We've had sessions on presentation skills. How do you work with that? We've had sessions on community relations and how do you work on community relations and stakeholder management. We've brought in guest speakers that have been former premiers. We've brought in guest speakers that are head of strategy for major consultancies. So we try and bring in the best people that we can that fit within that program. Have I missed anything, Charlie?
Nope, that was good.
Does the Xplor program work on a project that is under option or earn-in or similar arrangement, not yet owned, basically, not controlled by the company applying for Xplor? It truly is an idea.
I'm not sure. I'm going to answer the question in two ways just to make sure that I understand it correctly. So every project that comes in, we definitely need to understand what the ownership of that project is. And when the project comes into the program, I mentioned earlier that the form of contract that we use for the 6-month period is our participation agreement. And what we expect in return for the offering, which is the grant and the program period itself, is that that project will be exclusive to BHP during that 6-month period. And there won't be any kind of fundraising or capital raising against it. And what that allows is BHP to have the 6-month exclusivity and the option to invest in the project at the end of the program period. So if there are other ownership options on the project, we need to have that understanding in the application. So we do look at each application on its own. There's special circumstances like this that we've seen in the past. So I think the ask for you is that if there are existing earn-ins or options on the project, that you describe that in detail in the application so that we can have that understanding of what that means for BHP's option to invest in the project coming out of Xplor.
And Charlie, it's fair to say that that option at the end for BHP to invest, to make an investment, to make a proposal to the company of investment, it's not, they don't have to take it. It's not handcuffs.
That's
you can say no to. It's not like you're locked into BHP giving you an offer that you don't want. That's not the case.
That's correct. And again, I'm going to call it out specifically because the other question that we get asked is, what are the strings attached? And what's behind the scenes in the contract? And there's very little. I spoke to the exclusivity, the expectation that during the 6-month period, while the projects and the companies are participating in Xplor, that the projects are exclusive to BHP. But Niall is correct in that the option that BHP has at the end of the program is to extend an investment proposal, and each participating company has the option to accept or decline that proposal. In the event that the company accepts the proposal for investment and a longer-term partnership, then we will enter into the negotiations for that partnership agreement that will transpire beyond Xplor. If the participating company elects to decline that investment proposal, then BHP will have a first right on the project for 12 months thereafter. But that is the only remaining commitment that we have coming out of the Xplor program.
Jelly, do you mind if I add something just on the applications? Because I think East does quite a good example. So we actually had large area of interest as part of the program with BHP. And so some dogs are barking. What we did, we had a couple of licenses under application as we got into the program. So obviously part of that application process was the due diligence, which BHP did as well. But we extended it because when you're looking for porphyries, certainly in our view, you want to have a look at the whole belt. And so a lot of our money, a lot of the time and effort of the program was spent on looking at the Balkashili Magmatica as a belt, 200,000 square kilometres versus 2 specific projects. So I'm not going to put words in BHP's mouth, but my view would be if you've got an idea and you say you love this belt, but you don't have any licenses yet, for example, then pitch the belt because they want to use an operating team. So that whole, how do you know they're not going to steal the idea, is they're doing this because they want to extend their exploration reach without having the internal capacity to do all these things and be in all these places all at once. So they just want to work with good teams. So I would say pitch the idea and say, look, this is a belt that I'm looking at and this is the thesis, and we'd like to potentially pick up ground as part of the process. There was someone else in the cohort which weren't even really explorers. They weren't specific to licenses. Sorry, they're explorers, but Equivest had a technology. And I as far as I'm aware, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that they spent money on acquiring licenses or anything like that. They were proving up their exploration technologies. And so, it's pretty vast.
What happens after the 6-month period's elapsed and the project's not ready to drill? If the project still has merit, what happens then?
So at the beginning of the program, we say this, we've said this both years, and we'll say it again in year 3, and that is our commitment to each one of the participating companies is to add value to their project and their companies over the 6-month period. What we don't guarantee is a follow-on investment from BHP, and we're very upfront about that. But all of the companies that we've selected in, we see merit in and potential for further investment. It's not a guarantee. So what we're doing over the 6-month period from BHP's perspective is building our understanding of the projects, building our understandings of the team and the people to inform our decision at the end of the program on follow-on investment in the project and the decision to bring the opportunity into the exploration portfolio. So what you can expect at the end of the program is a communication on BHP's decision, whether we will or will not extend that investment proposal for follow-on investment. For the companies that we do decide to continue to invest in and partner with, we will enter into an alliance or earn-in type of agreement. That's been the common deal structure that we've done over the last couple of years. And we'll work together to align on a work program that we want to partner and jointly explore for the project. For those that we decide don't meet our investment criteria for any given reason, we continue to keep in touch with. So we give feedback on what the drivers of our decision were. We tell teams if it's projects that we want to see advance a little bit further before we can make our investment, we give that feedback. But I can tell you that we've kept in touch with all of our alumni program for Xplor, because regardless of the project, the teams that we've brought in to Xplor are all companies that we see as potential partners long-term, whether it's a project they brought in to Xplor or new projects that they may develop in the future.
Charlie, can I add something to that one? Because there's an implication, and I think in a couple of the questions. There's no expectation that an opportunity is drilled before or during the program. And in fact, at least one of the public investments is in that's been publicized, and there's another one which asks what proportion get. We can't say what proportion because some of these deals are with private companies where they're not publicly announced. So we can't. I don't think we can say what numbers we invest in, but it's multiple is probably the simple answer. But I can't give you an exact answer on that. But there's no expectation of having drilled, and there's no expectation of having an intercept by the end of the program. BHP is taking a very long-term perspective in terms of wanting to, it realizes it takes time. You're not necessarily, and a lot of companies coming in and go, oh, we have to spend this 500K, we have to have an intercept by the end of the program. That's the only way we're going to get investment. And that's categorically not the case. In some cases, it makes perfect sense, but in a lot of cases, actually, it doesn't in that time frame. Is that fair, Charlie?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks both. I'm just conscious of the time. We're running out of time, but there's a couple of questions here on the same subject. Any idea at this stage how many more years the program is going to run? How many more cycles?
Charlie?
We hope many more years and many more cycles. And, year 1 was a success. We proved it again in year 2. And we're making incremental changes along the way to make sure that we continue to keep Xplor new and innovative. We keep pushing the boundaries because we very much want to see this program continue well into the future. We say it and we mean it, that we think that this model has the potential to truly have an impact on the industry. And we know exploration timelines are not short term. So we're positioning Xplor to be sustainable for the future. And we are excited about the changes and improvements that we're going to be making for year 3.
Brilliant. Seems like a good point to wrap things up. If you didn't get your question or questions answered today, you can email them to explore@bhp.com. You can also meet the BHP Xplor team at Resourcing tomorrow in London in December. Thank you very much to Charlie, Noel, Alex, and the audience for their time on this webinar today. And I guess we'll see you all at Resourcing tomorrow in December. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks,
Thank you
Richard.
very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.